in connection to our walk with you and our spiritual life. Just pray that you may guide my mind and my thoughts and that the information will be clearly understood. For those who have taken the time out to join via Zoom meeting, may each heart be blessed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, as is customary, Sabado po sa inyo lahat, or happy Sabbath everyone, and greetings to you from the Philippines. The current local time now in the Philippines is around 8:05, 8:06, something like that. Little past 8 o'clock in the morning, Sabbath morning. And I'm going to be sharing part two, the cancerous character of Christ, part two. If you have not seen part one, you can go over to my YouTube channel, you can go over to my Facebook. Part one is there so you can understand where I'm coming from. But in case you're actually hearing me for the first time, maybe meeting me for the first time, I want to say very quickly, I am not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a naturopathic doctor. I'm just what you call a medical missionary. I received my training in Wildwood, Georgia, 2010. And in case you're wondering who a medical missionary is, it's just an individual who has received a short training, it was for 6 months, and we delved into physiology, anatomy. I've learned natural remedies, reasoning from cause to effect, etc. So that being said, the information that I am about to share with you this morning, I would encourage you to take it with a grain of salt. Okay, take it with a grain of salt, meaning you have to know for yourself um, how to ascertain the information. You have to know how to filter it, etc. And is it possible that when people join, we can just mute them automatically? It's very distracting, the noise level that we're having, and so on. So if we could mute people automatically when they come in, they're automatically mute. That will help me a lot to focus on my presentation. All right, that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed part one. I'm excited for part two, but part three is actually where things are gonna get a little bit more intense. But for part two, I'm gonna kind of lay low on the spiritual aspect and kind of get more into the physical and the practical. All right, so I'll be giving some tips this week, so make sure you have your pen and papers ready. That's why I have my screen here. I'm gonna be looking at some tips. To lay the foundation for this week, just gonna share a little study here with you. So when I research, hopefully my pen is gonna work. Okay, there we go. In 2020, okay, in 2020, there was like a surge of various cancers, right? So I'm looking at the deadliest cancer that ever just affect human beings on a whole. So in a study that was done in 2020, lung cancer, I'm just gonna put LC, all right? Lung cancer killed 1.8 million people, died from lung cancer in 2020. Okay, same year, colon cancer. So I'm just gonna put CC, right? Colon cancer killed 935,000 people from lung cancer. I mean, colon cancer rather, right? Same year, right? Liver cancer, I'm gonna put LC, liver cancer killed 830,000 people. Now, when you have time, you add all of that. Just add this number, and you will get the total number of people that died just from lung cancer, colon cancer, liver cancer. Okay? Compare this to the coronavirus and tell me how many people died from the coronavirus in 2020. Just comparing these three top cancer. We have um, lung cancer, then there's colon cancer, and we have liver cancer killing people, right? 1.8 million people. Now, I'm not going to get into the lung cancer aspect because that's a study by itself, but I want to target this cancer right here, the one that is happening in the colon, right? We're going to be looking at colon cancer. It's a very deadly disease, and when it happens, you're in serious trouble, okay? Serious trouble. There are different types of cancer, right? There are different types of cancer. There's prostate cancer, PC, right? We have the pancreatic cancer, right? Still PC. And then we have BC, right? BC would be breast cancer, okay? Breast cancer. When you deal with these diseases, okay, I'm gonna do something very interesting here for you guys. When you deal with these diseases, right? So I hope you're making notes because I'm erasing the board, right? I'm erasing the board. And when you deal with these types of cancer, the prostate cancer, the pancreatic cancer, and the breast cancer, we will look at them in the three perspective, right? We will look at the physiological effects, what's happening in the body that contributes to these cancer. Then after looking at the physiological effects, we will look at nutrition. You know, how does nutrition aid in these things? And then last but not least, right? DNT, disease and treatment. Okay, so as a medical missionary, I always reason from cause to effect. I look at the physiology, I look at nutrition, and I look at disease and treatment. All right, let's start with prostate cancer. Right, so as I said, I hope my board is very small. Very, very small, so I have to constantly keep erasing everything that I write here. But let's look at prostate cancer. Okay, let's look at prostate cancer. And let's start with the physiology of prostate cancer. The prostate is only found in men. We already know that, right? It's found in men. And the purpose of the prostate, I think someone really needs to mute their mic on the Zoom meeting. Brother Shaw, just go through the list, see who is not muted, private message them, ask them to mute their mic or mute them for me, please, if possible. When you look at prostate cancer, it's a very small gland that you find on the male sexual organ, the prostate. Okay, so let's look at it physiologically. The function of the prostate. Function of the prostate is to provide with semen, the sperm, right? That's what's happening down in the prostate. During the phase of sexual intercourse, the male will secrete sperm, semen, right? And that sperm, in order for it to be made, the prostate produces, or it needs a particular nutrient factor, which we call zinc. Right? Zinc is a very primary nutrient that is needed in the prostate in order for it to function at its optimum. And when you deal with the prostate, what's happening now is every time there's an ejaculation due to sexual intercourse, etc., the prostate loses that zinc content. So if you have been eating food that's rich in zinc, and I'm just I'm simultaneously talking about the physiology and the nutrition at the same time, right? So when you deal with the nutritional aspect of the prostate, zinc, very critical component to have in the diet. As a male, I take zinc supplement. I have raw pumpkin seed because those are two food items that will give me one food item. And I take a supplement because I'm married, sexually active, so I need to make sure that my prostate is well replenished, right, with that zinc because it's a big, big, big factor when it comes to the lifespan and the healthiness of one's prostate. There are some things that can just rot the prostate, as many would say, that's going to rot your prostate. You have to be careful. You have to be very careful with certain sugary foods, high fat diet, smoking, the stress level, etc. You have to be very careful. Marijuana, for those who might be watching this and you enjoy smoking marijuana or weed, some of it. So right now there's a trend in the states where weed or marijuana is being given to people as so-called medicine. It's now medicinal. I'm from Jamaica where marijuana is smoked a lot. And I watch a trend amongst my friends from the ghetto area where I'm from. And Jamaicans will agree with me on this. A lot of males who smoke a lot of marijuana find themselves drinking a lot of these energy drinks, Baba Roots and Magnum and those things. And when you look at these juice content that they're drinking, the advertisement for them is something that is going to help to boost their sex level or their sex drive, strengthen the erection, etc. So, could there be a connecting link between marijuana smoking and the sexual drive of the individual? I think there's a connection there. Somehow, I think that marijuana coming into the body, right, affects the prostate, it affects the erection level, etc. We know smoking does affect one's blood pressure, and if you affect the blood pressure, more than likely you're gonna affect your ability to get a certain strength of when it comes to erection, right? So I did notice that a lot of men who smoke in my community would constantly drink these energy drinks to help them during their sexual activities, right? So there are things that can just deplete the strength of the prostate and the functionality of it. And there are things that can strengthen. So I don't smoke, but I take zinc supplement and I eat a lot of pumpkin seed. When you get, there's books you can get, encyclopedia, natural remedies, etc., that actually shows you the nutritional content of your fruits, grains, your nuts, your vegetables, whatnot. Anything that is high in zinc is something that if you're married, you want to incorporate that in your husband's diet. As a man, you're single, want to just keep that prostate in optimal, health. That is something that you want to definitely capitalize on. So what's happening now is the prostate is there, right? And it feeds off zinc to keep its functionality. After over a period of time and looking at the disease and treatment aspect now of the prostate, right? Over a period of time, it can be years or months or etc. If the lifestyle of the male is one where he is ejaculating more frequent than his body is being fed with like zinc, etc., the prostate now reaches a point where fatigue kicks in, it's overworked, and the result ends up being prostate cancer. Okay, so one more time. When you deal with prostate cancer, you're looking at the strength, the overall health of the prostate. And one of the number one cause of prostate cancer is if the prostate continues to work and work and work, meaning multiple times for the day, multiple times for the week, like excessive intemperate sexual behavior, and just to not get in trouble with anyone's marriage, don't ask me in the Q&A section, how frequent should one have sex? I'm just going to tell you the answer right now. I'm not going to decide that. I don't know your husband's health and whatever with his. I don't know. So don't ask me how frequent. But I've heard some medical missionary recommends having intimacy once a month. Okay, I'm just saying, once a month, I don't know how that's going to affect your marriage and your mind and the overall brain. But some medical missionaries I've heard, I am not going to make any recommendations. I leave it up to you to decide. However, There are different tests that we can do. So you can, every now and then you go and they will insert their finger through the anus to check if that prostate is enlarged or not. Because once it's becoming enlarged, that means that it's now prone to becoming cancerous. So I noticed there's a trend with cancer. When you understand the functionality of the body, you look at nutrition and then you get into disease and treatment, you will now begin to find that there is a connecting link between lifestyle, right? Lifestyle and habits. So if I am constantly ejaculating, meaning you're constantly secreting, releasing that sperm, and you're not replenishing it with nutritional things, particularly the zinc nutrient, over a period of time, the prostate is now overwhelmed, and cancer is something that likes to target weak areas of the body. So any area that is vulnerable, that's where the cancer likes to dwell. Okay, so you're not gonna get prostate cancer, right, if you're not that sexually active. So people who are born and live their entire life as virgins, never ejaculate or anything, would more likely not have prostate cancer because the prostate is not being used, right? It's just not coming into work as it's, in this case of someone who is sexually active, right? And that's just the prostate cancer aspect. So, in order to combat that now, you have to watch your regularity of sexual intercourse. You have to also watch your diet and your lifestyle to make sure that you are keeping up with the rate at which you excreting or just ejaculating or releasing sperm. Okay, you can do sperm analysis to have an idea, and if you have gone through sperm analysis, they will tell you that you need to abstain from intercourse for at least 4 to 5 days max, right? To give an idea. So if they're gonna test my sperm within 4 to 5 days, then that should give you an idea of how long does it take for you to get that real peak quality sperm or semen. 4 to 5 days. So in your marriage, you can put in all of that equation, and then you and your partner can decide how often you want to be intimate or not. Interestingly, prostate cancer is more prevalent amongst black males, and I cannot put my hand on it directly to say why, but based on my observation, we know that from the slavery era, black males were more used as studs. So they were supposed to breed and to have more slaves. So they were taken away from work and just put to be sexually involved with the other slave women to produce offspring to keep that factory of producing slave going. So we have come out of slavery now, but we already know that black males on a whole, I think it's more by nature, we're more sexually active and we just want to be involved sexually constantly, etc. So you have to make sure that you are feeding your body correctly to strengthen yourself against the possibility of having prostate cancer. I'm gonna move now to pancreatic cancer, right? Pancreatic cancer. I'm gonna just shift to pancreatic cancer. So I hope you understand a little about how prostate cancer comes into the equation. Summary on it is constantly ejaculating, releasing that sperm, that semen, which comes through the production of the prostate glands, etc. If you overwork the prostate over a period of time, nutritionally, you're not replenishing your diet with adequate amount of zinc, the result could end up being prostate cancer. And this is basically an outline that I'm giving to you that you can use when it comes to any other disease. All right, let's take pancreatic cancer, PC. I just use the acronym so that you can stay awake and follow me in the presentation. Pancreatic cancer. In order to understand pancreatic cancer, we will look at the physiology of it. What's happening with the pancreas? What is the function of this particular organ in the body? Your pancreas is solely responsible for producing insulin, all right? So it is a factory that produces insulin. Insulin, it's a growth hormone. So when we deal with the pancreas, right, it secretes insulin. Insulin is a growth hormone, right? Growth hormone. My board is just very small. Sorry, bear with me, guys. It's a growth hormone, and it also transports, right? This transports glucose that comes from your carbohydrates, your starch. Your body, if you eat white bread, rice, pasta, yam, potato, anything that has carbohydrates or starch, it comes in the body as glucose, right? And os means a sugar, right? So os is a sugar. Now, when you eat that carbohydrates or starch, and the body you chew that food, you swallow it, your body does not identify it as, oh, this is rice, or this is bread, or this is flour, or this is cake. No, your body just identify it as what is it, sugar. So fructose would be sugar from fruit, fructose, right? Sugar. Then you deal with glucose, you're talking about sugar that's coming from carbohydrates or starch. When you have that kind of carbohydrates or starch coming into the body now, the pancreas is responsible for secreting insulin, right, to transport that sugar into the bloodstream. So imagine the pancreas is like the cab driver, right? And he's transporting the sugar to go into the cell. And the cell uses it for energy, right? Because it's the fuel that gets into the cell. Mitochondria is a big term, but it's the powerhouse of the cell. You have to feed the cell with glucose in order to get it in there. Now, when the insulin is carrying the sugar, so they would look something like this, right? So let's say one is the sugar, one is the insulin. They travel together, right? And they're gonna make their way to the cell, right? So if you have a cell, outside on the outer shell of the cell membrane, you have these insulin receptors, right? And this will attach itself here on the insulin receptors. Okay, it attaches itself there. Why is it attaching itself there? Because that's how the door, it comes, it makes a knock, and it wants to go into the cell. So you might ask the question, okay, how does the pancreas regulate or decide how much insulin to secrete? So if you want to know, there's a term called glycemic index, right? Glycemic index. When you have some time, research this word, glycemic index. The glycemic index is basically, you can put it on a chart. So you can put it on something like this, right? And then you have percentage here, and then you have the food content down at the bottom, right? And what's happened is, as you eat something, the glycemic index will rise, right? It rises. So if you have white bread, right? White bread would have a higher glycemic index versus wheat bread, white flour, etc. So that's what we do with the scale. And what the scale does is, the scale is just basically saying, when you eat refined carbohydrates, right? How much is the pancreas gonna produce a certain amount of insulin? So very quickly to understand that, and I'm getting into the nutritional aspect now, is that anything refined that has less fiber and more starch or carbohydrates will have a tendency to spike your glycemic index, meaning the pancreas will now have to do a lot more work in stabilizing your blood sugar, because that's the purpose of insulin. When you have that excess amount of glucose coming in, it's gonna now make your blood very sweet, right? That's actually diabetes if we crack a little on disease and treatment. When the blood becomes very sweet, we are so fearfully and wonderfully made that God placed the pancreas to be a sugar police officer that says, wait, this blood is too sweet. Put the pancreas to work. Let it secrete or produce insulin and attach that to stabilize your blood sugar. That's what the pancreas is doing. So every time you put a lot of white rice, white flour, white bread, white pasta, all this refined carbohydrates that's depleted of fiber, you put the pancreas to work and work and work and work. And here's what happened. The insulin that it's secreting constantly to stabilize your blood sugar level, it is a growth hormone. So that is why you find the average person, right, with a huge stomach in front of them. You have that belly that you're going to be dealing with. I'm a very poor artist here, but you get the point. Okay? Belly fat. Once you have that excess insulin coming in, and it's the same concept of those who drink alcoholic beverages and the juice and the drinks and so on. Too much of that, right? Because when you have an apple or an orange or a pineapple, when you eat it in its natural state, there's a lot of fiber. Okay? And because of the fiber, you get full very quickly. You cannot, the amount of apple juice that you get from concentrate apple juice or apple juice, etc., the amount of juice that you get from that, you could not eat that same amount of juice volume if you were to eat the apple itself. So God decided to protect us from the sugar by covering it with fiber. So you're eating an apple, after maybe one or two, you can't eat anymore. But man is so creative, we're so genius that we will find a way to extract that juice and get it to you because we're greedy and we want more, right? As a medical missionary, when we do our juicing, why we have a certain limit for the patient, certain amount of ounces for the patient, because we know what's going to be happening with the glycemic index as it relates to what's going to spike the blood sugar or not. When you get into disease and treatment about the pancreas, what happens now is the pancreas is working, so you're drinking all this juice, right? You are eating all these refined carbohydrates. It's very depleted in fiber, so the pancreas is working and working and working and working and working. When it gets so overwhelmed and overworked, it becomes very weak and vulnerable, and cancer now comes to the aid. Cancer is like a roaring lion. It just go around seeking whom it may devour in the body. Anything weak and vulnerable, cancer now takes residence, right? But how would you get cancer? You have to just mess with the physiology long enough, have very poor nutrition, and ultimately you will develop, more than likely, your chances of developing cancer, which is disease, it becomes a huge factor. What is the treatment for pancreatic cancer? You might ask. Well, it's cancer, and we know you go to the doctor, they're going to naturally do chemo, etc. Sometimes before the person develops cancer, they will have a more mild disease, which is diabetes, right? And diabetes actually means sweet blood. So diabetes can be under two categories. We have type 1, we have type 2. When you deal with type 2, it's more lifestyle based. Type 1, people are kind of more born with it, etc. When you deal with type 2, which is a lifestyle disease, we refer to it as. In type 2, you find that basically the pancreas, sometimes it's working and it's secreting insulin, but the insulin receptors are damaged. Somebody changed the lock on the door. So when the glucose comes, when insulin comes bringing that glucose and it comes to the door of the cell, someone changed the knob. Your key doesn't work. The insulin receptors are damaged. Some things that can damage the insulin receptors are high fat diet, watching the stress level, lack of sleep. I mean, you just go down the list, right? And you will see some of the factors. Smoking, alcohol, all right, a lot of free radical damage. And in part one, I explain what a free radical damage is. Oxidative stress, I explained that in part one, so you might have to go back to refresh yourself on part one about what's the definition of free radical damage and oxidative stress. Okay, so you have to be careful of those things, right? Now, when you deal with the nutrition of the pancreas, the way out of type 2 diabetes or a good fighting chance is to have higher quantity of fiber into the diet. The more fiber you have with your food, okay, is the less work that you will put on the pancreas. So the pancreas is more a transporter than something that's trying to equalize or neutralize your blood sugar level, right? So that's something that you have to bear in mind when it comes to your nutrition. So I know, as a Jamaican, I did not appreciate whole wheat dumpling when I became a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. I grew up eating a lot of white flour dumpling. Sometimes they would put cornmeal in it to just balance it a little bit, right? But the bulk of my dumpling was white flour, and I got so used to white flour that when I was first given whole wheat dumpling when I became a Seventh-day Adventist, very hard for me to eat that thing. They gave me brown rice, so unfortunately I learned to eat healthier when I became an SDA Christian, right? I did not know how to really appreciate this high fiber food. They tasted bad. It took a lot more discipline to chew it. But what helped me to appreciate it was the health lecture given in the churches, explaining to me why you want to have more diet. Brother Shaw, someone again, just have that mic muted, please. All right, very distracting. Okay, so you want to make sure that you learn, educate the mind, and the body will follow in pursuit. Educate the mind, the body will follow. If I have the information in my mind, I can discipline myself, eat wheat dumpling because it's better for you. When I eat it, I'm thinking about physiology. I'm thinking about what my pancreas is going to do after this meal. It's going to work less because I don't need as much insulin if I have a high fiber diet going on. Okay, so you put the pancreas to do less work so that you can have a better fighting chance against pancreatic cancer. Okay, let's transition now to, and I hope you understood about pancreatic cancer, how the pancreas works, how diabetes comes into the equation. I'm erasing my board again, right? Oh, now I wanna, okay. Okay, glycemic index. All right, last on our list is we're gonna touch, let me put this back, disease and treatment. We're gonna put on the list here, right? I'm gonna be dealing with cleansing, right? Cleansing, very, very critical component. And I find that cleansing is something that the average person will change their diet, they change their lifestyle, so they become vegan, they become vegetarian, but a lot of people don't know the benefit of cleansing. And why am I talking about cleansing? It's because of number 3 on our list, right? Colon cancer. Colon cancer, CC. Colon cancer is a byproduct of the body not having proper cleansing. Okay, when you have a high fat diet, a high fiber diet, you're gonna find that there is the daily cleanse going on. So there is the daily cleanse, and then you can have the yearly cleanse, right? You need a daily cleanse in order to help you to deal with what is coming into the body. Because when you talk about food, brothers and sisters, right, when you eat, right, your body will take the amount of nutrients that the body needs for that particular day, and then after that, you have the waste. Not everything that you eat is utilized by the body. So the waste is the last portion of the digestive physiological idea about digestion. Right? When you deal with the physiology of digestion, you eat, your body uses it, and then the last part of the spectrum is waste. Okay? And one good rule of thumb is this, very carefully. If I eat 3 meals, you're supposed to get at least 3 bowel movement. 3 meals, 3 bowel movement. If you're not getting bowel movement to match the amount of food that you're eating, there is a breakdown in your body, and over a period of time, all that waste that is not excreted from the body will come back and haunt you. It's like a ghost. It will come back and it will haunt you. Because what happened is, right? Say I eat breakfast and it's a low fiber diet. I'm not having enough fiber in my diet. I eat breakfast, and as a result of what I eat, I'm not getting a bowel movement. So breakfast, no bowel movement. Lunch, no bowel movement. Dinner, meal, 1 bowel movement. You would have had 3 meals, only 1 bowel movement. That is dangerous. Your body did not utilize all that food. So where did the waste go? Okay, let me tell you where the waste went. And this is gonna shock you. Brace yourself for impact. When you eat that food, okay, and you don't go to the CR, the toilet, and get rid of that waste matter, right? That is reabsorbed into the bloodstream. It now becomes the garbage bin is now inside your colon. It begins to cling to the walls of the colon. And one clear indication that you're filthy is fart smells. You fart, it stinks. Okay? You fart, it stinks. Why? Why do I have that odor coming from my body? It's because there is a toilet in your body that is not flushed. There's a garbage bin in your body that needs to be emptied. Cleansing, beloved friends, is what's going on. So you want to have frequent bowel movement with the regularity of your meals. As this thing now attaches itself to the walls of the colon, it now begins to clog into the intestine. And let's go into nature. Let's go into nature and let's look at the intestines for the human being versus the intestine of animals. So, human beings. Whoa. You see that, guys? That's the human being's intestines. They are very curvature. They have a lot of curve, right? Which means that we were not designed to eat a certain way because of the curves in our intestine. Okay? When you deal with the animal kingdom, so it comes in through the mouth and they have a more round intestine and you have their anus there at the back. Human beings, our anus is there. Okay? So animals who eat a lot of meat, they have like a one-track intestine, very oval. They eat, they cut, they swallow. It comes into a pouch, okay, and they have their bowel movement. For human beings now, ours is very coiled up. And I have a friend, one of my roommates back in the dorm. His health lecture was about the intestine, and he said if you extend the intestine in a long hose-like shape, it's almost like the size of a football field. Don't ask me if that's accurate or not. I would not volunteer to have my intestines stretched out to tell you if it matched the length of a football field or not. Anyways, the point is, physiologically speaking, due to the curves of the intestine, you want to make sure that whatever you're eating, you're getting bowel movement, because anything that does not get excreted will clog into the intestinal walls and into the colon. When I became an SDA, I was introduced to cleansing very early in my SDA life. There was a man in Manig who was selling colon cleanse. He did it the herbal way, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit. It might ruffle some feathers, but I have to talk about that a little bit. I was introduced to cleansing very early, and when I did the cleanse, it helped me with my appetite control. I was eating less, and the gunk that came out of my body was just overwhelming. It was stink. It was bad. It was feces that I don't want to see or smell ever again. When I did the cleansing as well, I noticed that the shape of my stool was very different. Not only that, but I look at the size, the side of it, and I could see your handprint, right? You have fingerprint marks in your hands, right? That's why you put it on the machine and you get a print. Did you know that the colon has prints on the side of it? Yeah, the colon has marks. So when you, one clear indication to tell before you flush the feces, look if you can see marks on the feces to give an idea that the colon or the intestinal walls are clear. If you're not seeing marks on the sides of your stool or the outside area of your stool, if you're not seeing colon prints, something is wrong. When you deal with cleansing, right? Christians are not gay. We don't believe in going through the exit because it's not wrong. My philosophy and what I was trained when it comes to cleansing, it should be mouth in, anus out. Anything you're gonna put up the colon, or they have these colon cleanse and these cleanse where they are flushing a bunch of water up the anus to flush things out. Not what God designed. Not what God designed. Because physiologically speaking, you want to flush down. When you flush your toilet, where does the water come from? Top down. How do you get stuff into the body that clogs it up in the first place? Mouth in, clog in the stomach, and then you're trying. So I personally, as a medical missionary, will never recommend putting anything up the anus like water or certain enemas, etc. because I believe that the cleansing should be from the mouth down through the stomach. Let it go through the process of digestion. Okay, there are some different cleanses out there that we can take advantage of. I have two that I have been exposed to. It's where I use 13 herbs, and I've seen women with belly fat in 1 week, 2 weeks, boom, belly fat is gone. Right? When you deal with this waste that is happening over a period of time, okay, it's reabsorbing to the bloodstream and it begins to poison the body. It becomes very toxic. It's reabsorbed into the bloodstream. It becomes poisonous. Some women that I put on that cleanse, their skin got lighter, their complexion lightened up because of their body now being cleansed. Right? So we have to be very careful about that. So when you deal with cleansing, it's a very critical component. I know we might be eating healthy. I know we're walking and exercising and drinking water, but cleansing program is a part of that. Just the regular, and again, one more time, there is the daily cleanse and you have the yearly cleanse. May I transition here? I want to use my next 15 minutes to tap into the spiritual aspect of what's happening in the body. And I'm going to show you that this thing is not invented by man, but it's deeply rooted in the Bible. Remember our topic? We're dealing with the cancerous character of Christ. Christ knows this. If you have your Bibles with me, turn to Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. I know it from memory, but I want to turn my Bible there to give you time. Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. Cleansing, very critical component, friends. Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. And it says, and it came to, no, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Okay, I challenge you to go back to the sanctuary. There were daily sacrifices. There was a daily cleansing going on of the sinner. They came daily. There was a daily sacrifice, morning and evening. There was a daily cleanse. And then you have the year days. Then shall be Romans chapter 12, verse 1. Romans chapter 12, verse 1. What does the Bible say about sanctuary? Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. So the cleansing aspect is spiritual and it's also physical. Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary had a yearly cleansing. It had a daily aspect going on when they were doing the sacrifices, etc. It's the same concept in the body, beloved friends. Frequent bowel movement, it gives you the daily cleansing. The Bible says our body should be a living sacrifice. That's sanctuary language. That's cleansing language coming into the equation. And when we don't follow the pattern, the end result is cancer. Very deadly disease happening in the colon, happening in the body, the stomach, the intestine, all these things. And it now begins to spread. Let's look at a couple more Bible verses. I don't have a Bible verse for this one, but you can go back to it. When there's one sacrifice that they were doing, right? Passover. When it comes to the Passover feast, right? Israel was told to eat the Passover with bitter herbs. I'm not going to get into the details too much on that, but I challenge you, do a little research. Why were they asked to eat bitter herb with this kind of Passover? God had Israel on a cleansing program every year. They were doing a cleansing. The bitterness, and when you deal with bitter herb, I told you I don't have the time, right? Anything bitter, it's astringent, right? Bitter is a cleanser. Bitter cleanser. So in the Philippines, there's the bitter gourd or ampalaya. That's very bitter, very good cleanser. When you deal with certain herbs, we have, my grandfather used to give me that one, chickweed. Very bitter. There's the bitter wood, right? Very bitter. Like you drink that thing, you want to vomit. Okay, those are some. I grew up as Jamaican. We were given bitters. Every summer, you have to get your bitters, right? You have to take washout. They would give you these washout. You drink it. You can't eat anything, and it gives you diarrhea for a day or two. You're just constantly pooping. That was their way of cleansing the body. We have grown up now. We're now adults now. No more mommy and daddy to give us any bitters or any washout, as we call them back in Jamaica. So we just go on now and think and assume that, oh, just eat healthy. But I'm here to tell you, no, we have it wrong. Cleansing is a part of the functionality of how we're going to keep our bodies clean and pure to fight against cancer. I have one more text that I want to share with you. Revelation chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3 verse 20. Revelation chapter 3 verse 2. Revelation chapter 3 verse 2. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before God. Revelation chapter 3 verse 2 it says, be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready. Vigilant, beloved friends. We have to be vigilant. God us to factor in the idea that cleansing, we have to be watching for that which is there and we have to strengthen it. So if you're not doing active cleansing, you are in trouble. So some of you, before you ask me, Brother Davin, how often should I do these cleansing programs? Okay, if I do the intense one, I have two that I do. They're very, very, very intense if you ask me. I call it the Calvary Cleanse. It lasts for 3 days. You literally will go through like what Christ went through. I'm not going to get into too much details of that, but the Calvary Cleanse is where for 3 days you have no carbohydrates, no rice, no flour, no sugar, nothing. It's a sugar-free diet. For 3 days, no sugar, no food. You're just taking a lot of liquid. So there's homemade soy milk that's unsweetened, no sugar. You're doing juice from watermelon, carrot, apple, right? You put moringa in it at some point. And all through it, also coconut water. Every hour on the hour, you're drinking some liquid. By the time you get to day 2 and you pass your feces on that cleanse, you can see the marks on the feces side of you can see the print of the colon and the intestine printing on the fecal matter. Not only that, after day 2, there's no smell of the feces at all, right? And one thing I tell people to gauge how well you're doing, when you go to the bathroom, I know we like to put reading material in the toilet, so when you sit there, why do you think we have reading material? Constipation, take forever to get that bowel out. It's low, body doesn't have enough water, and it doesn't have enough fiber. Fiber is something that you and I cannot digest fiber. You can't digest it. But you need water to help flush that system. So when I'm washing the dishes and I have my sponge or Scotch Brite to wash the dishes, I don't just apply soap and rub that plate or that pot. I have water. So the fiber is like the Scotch Brite or the sponge. That's the role of the fiber. And it goes through the intestine now, but it needs water to help to flush. So that's why you drink adequate amount of water to help you. If you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables with your diet and your bowel movement is not frequent, you need to be drinking more water. When the combination is correct. So for breakfast, I eat 3 or sometimes 2 to 3 kinds of fruits with my meal for breakfast. When I'm eating my dinner or lunch, when I'm eating lunch, I have a salad, right? Raw, uncooked with dressing. It's lettuce or whatever, broccoli, cauliflower, whatever I want to have for my salad. That's what I have to go with my protein and my carbohydrates. I have a salad. And I'm drinking water throughout. 30 minutes before my meal, I stop drinking water, right? When I have that going on, I'm eating that fruits in the morning with my protein, carbohydrate. Maybe it's toast with wheat bread, or I'm having granola with my soy milk, almond milk, etc. When I have that kind of fiber coming in with my variety of fruits, when I'm finished an hour and a half later, I'm drinking a lot of water. Guess what? When I wake up in the morning, right, I get a bowel movement before I eat my first meal. After breakfast, right after I'm finished with my breakfast, gotta go again, another bowel movement. I eat my lunch, another bowel movement follow. For my supper or dinner time, which is maybe 5, 6 o'clock thereabout, I am not eating any carbohydrates or protein usually. What I do is I'll have frozen fruits that I make into a smoothie, and that's what I will eat. Sometimes I might have like sky flakes with a little peanut butter, but my dinner very small, right? I'm not eating the Jamaican dinner, which is the dumpling and the yam and banana or rice and peas or rice with the no. dinner for me, which as the sun is setting, be like the chicken. Sun is setting, they get ready to go on their roof, or whatever they call it, right? So my third meal, it's very light. Why am I eating a light third meal? I'm getting ready for bed. My body's going into resting mode. It's not the time that I want to put a big meal into my stomach. And that is why the average Jamaican that I know does not want to eat breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8. You know why? They have the big plate of food still packed in that stomach trying to be digested, because when you go to bed with that heavy big dinner, okay, what's going to be happening with you is that the body needs to sleep, digestion stops so that you can sleep. And then you wake up in the morning, digestion continues, and that's why the average Jamaican diet does not accommodate breakfast. You are not inclined to eat breakfast because you're still digesting dinner. I can beef with Jamaican because I grew up Jamaican. When I stopped eating that heavy dinner in the Jamaican diet, there are some numerous improvements that I saw. I can eat breakfast, one. I get a better sleep. I have less breakout and stuff in my body, right? I've seen a tremendous world of difference when I stop eating that big heavy dinner at night before I go to bed as a Jamaican. My mucus level, like sometimes you wake up, you have that, you want that, it's connected to that dinner that's eaten. Right? You know how we have the tendency, you want that tea, okay, and you have that gas. You're in the morning, you're like burping, you have gas, so Jamaican run to a cup of tea. I don't drink a cup of tea religiously anymore. I will drink tea, it's barley. Mine is fake coffee, it's barley, roasted barley. I only drink that if it's a cold time and I just need something warm in my body to give me what do you call this? To help me to digest. I mean, to warm up my body, basically. That's the only time I will have something like that. But when I stop eating that heavy dinner, I don't have that gas. I don't have gas anymore. I'm not craving for tea anymore. Why? Dinner is very light. 1 cup of smoothie, frozen fruits, blended up with a little soy milk, almond milk, etc. Drink that, maybe a small piece of crackers with peanut butter on it. I'm done. That's dinner. I eat at 6, I'm in bed by 9. So 3 hours later, that smoothie is out of my system. By 10 o'clock the latest, I'm in bed. I am not digesting anything. Cleansing is so important, beloved friends. Cleansing is so important that Jesus did something to the temple twice. What did Jesus do in the temple twice? Jesus cleansed the temple in Jerusalem twice. And notice the language he used, right? You have made this house, my father's house, into a den of thieves. I explain to you what free radical does. I tell you what these unstable molecules are doing. They become unstable and they begin to steal electrons from other molecules. Here they are, right? And when they lose one or more of their electrons, they become very unstable and they run around the body to kill, steal, and destroy. If Jesus cleansed the temple in Jerusalem, don't you believe that Jesus wants to do the same for you today? Not just physical, but also spiritual. He wants to cleanse the heart. When Christ comes in, he knocks on the Laodicean door. He said, I will come in and sup with you. When Christ comes in to sup with us, he takes us through a cleansing process as well. Throw out the old leaven, the malice, throw those things out and replace it with new leaven. It's a cleansing idea. It's cleansing happening in the body. Anyways, I'm excited for next week. Promises to be good. That's what I wanted to share with you this week, that if you are not on a certain diet that facilitates frequent bowel movement, just look at these cancer in detail and you will realize very quickly that prolonged diet and lifestyle weaken certain part of the body, and the end result is cancerous. Don't miss part 3, promises to be good, and part 4, we will have some closure to this series. God bless. For those who are watching from Facebook, mabuhay from the Philippines. Shoot me your messages or comment, and I'll be more than willing to address them when I'm finished.